Right. Hi, welcome everyone. Apologies. We had some technical difficulties, of course. The first time we did it, it was great. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our second Light the Way to Mental Wellness webinar. We're excited to be bringing you these topics that we know you want to learn and hear about and what we're passionate about. If you're joining us live, if it's not too late, you could leave us questions, comments, and any thoughts that you may have, and we'll answer and address them at the end of the session. If you're not watching us live, you could email us at hello@lightthewaycounseling.com, and we will make sure we answer your questions. Again, sorry for the delay. Let me just start introducing myself. My name is Erica. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I have the privilege of being Noah's mom. Noah's 3 years old. He's very good at communicating what he wants and what he doesn't want, like your, typical 3-year-olds, toddlers. Noah is nonverbal. He's a great problem solver, and he has an amazing smile. Noah was an unexpected pregnancy and also surprised us with a Down syndrome diagnosis. So, one thing that caught me off guard with parenting a child with a disability was the challenges that it would bring to the marriage, the couple relationship with communication, and all of that stuff. So, I have some statistics for you. 20% of American homes have a child with a chronic illness, disability, or acute medical needs. So divorce rates among parents with children with a disability are as high as 87%. With a child with autism, it's 80%. Parents with children with Down syndrome, it's a lower divorce rate. And I say this not to discourage anyone that has a child with a disability, but to alarm us, to bring awareness to us on things that we need to do. So let's start with the number one cause of divorce rates in your general public is communication. And you can guess that the first thing to probably go is communication when challenges arise. So communication, you probably feel like you're communicating with your spouse a lot. There's a lot of moving pieces. You might have doctor's appointments, kids' schedules, therapies. And so you're probably communicating things, schedules, surface level stuff, but we're not communicating our needs, our hurts, our fears. And if we do, we're not giving it enough time to process and feel heard and accepted and validated by our spouse. So that's one of the challenges that we have when we are parenting a child with a disability. Another thing that we see is we're unable to have conversations about our hurts. Say our spouse said something to us and it really bothered us, and it's hard for us to communicate that. When we do that, we might not have enough time to finish a conflict, argue, because we got to move on to the next thing, therapy, doctor's appointment, the kids are getting into something. So you could already probably picture that it is overwhelming, and being overwhelmed brings stress, which again, everything is going to fall back on communication. One thing is when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, it also does a disservice to the marriage. I understand why we're feeling that way, right? It makes sense. There's so many responsibilities. You have other children. You might be working a full-time job. You have therapies, school IEP meetings, extra doctor's appointments, calling insurance, financial stress, all of those things. It's no wonder that parents and children with children with a disability are feeling stressed and overwhelmed, and they're approaching or at burnout. So the challenge to that is, you know, it makes you extra sensitive. You might be easily irritated. You might snap at your spouse, at your kids more. Um, and it leads to unresolved conflict. Again, no time to resolve these conflicts. So resentment is building up. Disconnect, communication is breaking down. Again, back to communication, right? So what we want to do is we want to manage communication. We want to manage the stress and feeling overwhelmed that leads to burnout. Another challenge that we're seeing in couples of children with disability is not having enough time and resources to be able to complete conversations and all of that stuff. So one thing that's, I think, the most uncomfortable for me is already telling people that are overwhelmed and stressed something else to do. Hear me out. I'm asking you to put yourself and your marriage on your to-do list. And that's really uncomfortable for me because I know how hard that is. It's easier said than done. And so with everything that we have on our plates, one thing that does get put to the side is the marriage relationship. The financial issues of, hiring a babysitter, going out to eat, all of that plays a part. If our child has really like special needs or chronic health issues, and feeling comfortable and safe leaving your child with someone, that makes perfect sense. That's a challenge. When we're left with limited time, the time that you do have free, you're exhausted. You just are like a zombie looking at your phone and just so uncomfortable and tired that you just don't want to do anything. You don't have any more energy. So if you can relate, don't lose hope. I know this is, I don't want to share this to say like, oh, this is so difficult and everything, but these are challenges. Just like our children are facing challenges, we're facing challenges. These are challenges that we are facing. And with any challenge, there's a solution. There's something that we can do. And sometimes the solutions that we pick are not the best, right? So we say, oh, we don't have money, we don't have time. So the first thing that's going to go to the side is our marriage. And we think that we're saving money, we're saving time, we're being efficient with our energy, and we're actually sacrificing our marriage, our emotional and mental health when we do things like that. So what are some good solutions to communication, burnout, stress, and limited time and resources? Let's go through some of those. Learn effective ways to communicate. Again, easier said than done, right? So we want to learn different ways to communicate with our spouse. We want to find like golden nuggets of time. When is the best time to express something? And create those moments too. We can't just wait for them to pop up because it may never happen. So one thing that we want to do is be intentional, be mindful, and think, okay, maybe once a week before we go to bed, we can have a conversation, or even write things down, because I know I forget, like, oh, I got to mention this to my husband. And then I forget. And then when we do have time to talk, we're on a long car ride or something like that, my mind is blank. So one thing to do is kind of write it down, keep track of it somewhere, so that when you guys have that unexpected free time or planned time, you have something to talk about. You know what needs to be addressed first. You have your priorities set. Another thing to do is um, I'm sorry. uh, think of small things. So sometimes we have that all or nothing mentality, right? So if you have 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's time. That's time for you to communicate, to express something, to just be in silence and enjoy each other's company. So don't get stuck in all or nothing. I don't have an hour to speak to my spouse, so I'm not going to talk to them at all. Be intentional. Another way is, and I know this is hard, going back to putting yourself on your to-do list, taking care of yourself, go to your doctor's appointments, um, get the things done that you need to do, put yourself on that to-do list. Because when you are better taken care of, when you take care of yourself, you have more to give to your kids and your spouse. So much of our resources are going into our children that your spouse is going to get the leftover. And what's left, honestly, if we're being honest, is not that much. So if we can feed into ourselves, take care of ourselves, we have more to give. We are more effective. We're better parents, better spouses when we take care of ourselves. I hear you. Easier said than done. So, what are some of the things that you already are doing that can be considered self-care? You're driving, you're in the car by yourself sometimes, you have an opportunity to listen to music that you enjoy. That can be considered self-care. Sometimes we just get trapped in the going and going that we forget that we actually have some moments where we can take care of ourselves. When you're driving, just singing out loud, yelling at the top of your lungs, your favorite song, that feels good. And you could reframe it, twist it, and say, this is for me. This makes me feel good. So I'm going to do it. Sometimes we just get driving and going. So pausing, let me put on my favorite song. Let me put on my favorite podcast. Let me listen to this. It makes me feel good. I feel better, relaxed, rested when I do X, Y, and Z. Exercising, spending time with your friends, connecting with people. I know we tend to isolate because we're overwhelmed. So connecting with people. Those are good things for our mental health, our well-being. And the last thing, now that if you're taking care of yourself, your marriage, we have to prioritize our marriage. We have to schedule it in. We have to make use of those times that we have and fit it in there somehow. So when the kids go to bed, prepare yourself mentally. I'm going to stay up a little bit later. I'm going to spend time with my spouse. We're going to, listen to something, talk about something, have dessert together, eat dinner together, have a drink together, whatever it is, even if it's for 20 minutes that the two of you are off your phones looking at each other, it's helpful. And when you're together, look at your spouse, engage with your spouse. Not, it gets annoying when you're trying to talk to someone and you're sharing about your day and the person is really not engaged. The person is looking away, looking at their watch, looking at their phone. When you're with your spouse, it is important. I know that you're mentally drained. You just want to zone out, that you take that time and stare, gaze at each other, and really try to enjoy the other person's presence. There might be some unresolved issues that need to get addressed. Yes, and those things are important to address, and learning how to communicate and talk about those things are so helpful. But it's equally important to really still try to connect with each other, be friendly, be loving with each other, because when you're dealing with the conflict, you don't want to compromise and meet in the middle with someone that you're really upset with and not connected with. So when you try to maintain that connection, it will be easier to communicate with that person. Again, that's the first thing to go, because they're an adult. They could suck it up and keep moving forward. We're fine. It's the kids. We got all this stuff to deal with. But you know what? That's an important aspect of the relationship, of the family dynamics that needs to be attended to. So it's really important that we really focus on taking care of ourselves and taking care of our marriage, because if we're one, we're not whole when we're lacking in our marital relationship. So one last thing, if it's not planned, it's not going to happen. Plan, put it in a calendar, even if it's a couple months from now, once a month, weekly, plan something, whether it's in the home, outside of the home, a weekend away, plan something, because it's not just going to magically happen like, oh, look, I mean, it happens sometimes where all of a sudden the kids are so nicely distracted doing something and you have like 20 minutes to be with your spouse and say, wow, we could actually have a conversation. But it doesn't always happen that way. So plan it out. To summarize, first of all, thank you for listening and being here. I know we started a little later than we planned. So if you're rewatching this at a later time, please reach out to us with any questions to our email and let us know what your thoughts are. Any other topics that you want to be covered, that you want to hear about, want to learn about, let us know. We'll start fitting it in. So let us know if you have any questions. So just summarizing, when I first started with those statistics about communication being the number one cause of divorce, and 20% of homes have someone with a disability or a chronic illness or special healthcare needs, that 87% end in divorce. That's a high rate. And one thing that I guess surprised me was because we tend to work as a team in a marriage when we're dealing with our kids. That's like probably some people's first reaction is, I want to be there with my spouse and figure this out. I don't want to leave my child that needs me. But then all of the stuff starts piling up, and it's easy to see why these things happen. So is it hard? Yes, marriage is hard on a good day. Will it take work from us? Yes, but we can do it. If our kids are extremely capable and amazing, we could do whatever it takes to provide the best environment for them. And it includes taking care of ourselves and taking care of our marriage. I know it's challenging. Believe me, I've been there. So I hope that this is helpful. And if there's any questions that you have, please reach out. We're here and we want to help as much as we can. Okay? Thank you for joining.